Hello everyone, very good afternoon and warm welcome to all of you. I hope you and your families are doing good at this time and staying safe. So firstly, thank you for taking your time out and attending this session on the topic, the journey to cloud native. A very relevant topic at this time. So I'm Tilak, a part of NASCOM outreach team, and I'm going to be the host for today's session. So I would also like to extend the special thanks to our panelists and our speakers who are going to provide us a lot of insight on this topic of cloud native. So currently the buzzword is cloud across. And we have the right people here who's going to provide us the insight on this topic, right? So before we begin, I would like to make sure that we're going to help you in the right way. So we have this Q&A tab where we could source the questions. So I would request if all of you can pour in questions there. So at the end of the session, we're going to take it up and address that. So we have typically kept the Q&A for the end of the session, so giving sufficient time for our panelists to explain on this topic. So without any further ado, let me invite Mr. J. Chandran, who is the India head cloud migration services at Computacenter, and he's going to be the session chair and moderate the session today. So over to Jay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tilak. Hello, and welcome to the panel discussion. I'm your moderator, Jay Chandran, and I head the data center and cloud migrations at Computacenter. And today on the panel discussion, we are talking about the journey to cloud native. On today's episode, we are going to look at what is cloud native, the approach organizations are taking on their journey towards modernization. We'll also talk about future of SaaS platform, and we'll do a little bit of deep dive into SaaS platform, right? So I would just like to give you a bit of preamble to start with before we set the stage with our panelists. According to IDC market analysis perspective, the enterprise spending on public cloud infrastructure is growing at a faster rate than spending on traditional IT infrastructure. We all know that, which is not a surprise. So based on lessons learned in 2021 alone, 80% of enterprises will put a mechanism in place to shift to cloud-centric infrastructure and applications twice as fast as before the pandemic. So India's public cloud services market alone is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 24% for 2022 and 2022 through 2022 to 2025. So cloud continues to be the foundation pillar for digital transformation. So we are going to talk about cloud native today. So cloud native services are becoming crucial for enabling new architectures and functionalities. So cloud native is the biggest enabler of our generation, and we are already experiencing that. So if you are looking to give an award for the busiest IT category of 2021, cloud native would certainly deserve your consideration. It's an early front runner for one of the hottest segments in 2022. A small trivia for you all. According to IDC, over 500 million new logical applications would be deployed between 2019 and the end of 2023, equaling the total number of applications launched in the last 40 years, which is amazing, isn't it? So cloud native is going to be the new normal. Research reveals that cloud native development will be driving disruption across industries. So having said that, with me today are three experts, Ashish Agarwal, Sreenath, and Srikant Saumanarayanan. So welcome. Nice to have you here.
Thanks, Jay.
Great. So I thought we would start a little bit with asking you a bit about your background and how you got to this role. So Ashish, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Jay. Hi, everybody. This is Ashish Agarwal. First of all, I would like to thank NASCOM for providing the opportunity. It's an honor to be here today. About myself, I have over 2 decades of experience in the IT industry. I'm currently working as a Vice President and Unit Technology Officer at ITC Infotech. I'm leading the technology initiatives and solutions for our customers in cloud, application development and maintenance, infra, testing, and ERP worlds. Prior to ITC Infotech, I was working with Infosys and HCL Technologies. Today, I'm going to talk about modernization practices towards cloud adoption and what we see with our customers around this. Glad to be part of this event today, along with other leaders from the industry, Jay.
Great. So Sreenath, let's begin with you.
Yeah, so thanks, Jay, and thanks, Ashish. So quick intro about myself, Sreenath. I'm responsible for the global applications and analytics within DXC. Been doing this role for the last 3 years in DXC. And prior to that, I had spent 17 years with Wipro, did multiple roles in Wipro, and the last role being the overall head of a geography, where I was running the entire business. Prior to that, I had some good stint working with the ABB and Emphasis. So overall, I bring in close to 3 decades of experience working in the IT industry. And today I'm going to really touch upon the entire adoption of cloud native and how it's going to be relevant for the analytics, data-driven analytics, and also in the SaaS and ERP CRM solutions, how it's going to be sort of deployed and how we could sort of scale it to the marketplace. Yeah.
Thank you, Sreenath. Srikanth.
Hi, everyone. This is Srikant here. I have 20 plus years of experience, and currently in my role, I head the high-tech vertical for Happiest Minds. And as part of that, work with a lot of the technology ISV companies in helping them chart out their cloud modernization journey, as well as how they can leverage the different flavors of cloud so that they can provide the services to their end customers in a more effective manner. Prior to Happiest Minds, where I have been there for the last 10 years, I was there with Accenture and Tech Mahindra. And I have had experience working right across from, the embedded systems kind of software to the cloud software, various different applications in between. So today I'll be talking more about the deeper nuances of SaaS, whether it be horizontal SaaS or vertical SaaS, and how it helps enterprises and platform companies by adopting these technologies.
Great. Thank you all. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to ask a few questions to the group, and each of you can respond in 10. And at the end of it, hopefully, we will have some time for questions, right? So the $1 million question to start with, what is cloud native? And Sreenath, why don't you go ahead for it?
Thanks, Dave. I think, first of all, thanks, Dave, for the excellent preamble that you had set in. With the significant adoption of applications onto the cloud, especially whether it is private cloud, public cloud, or whether you have the partner cloud as well. Now, applications, if you look at from the cloud native standpoint, the applications that are designed are to basically from the ground up approach or have to be cloud enabled. This will bring in a good amount of scalability, resilience, security, accessibility, and also with respect to the fault tolerance. These applications are developed with a strong mindset so that these applications can run very well on the cloud platforms, as it could be in public cloud or it could be in private cloud, or it could be even also on the hybrid cloud architecture. Composability of applications using microservices, API economy, and also bringing in a good amount of modular architecture design principles are going to be the key threads when you are building the cloud native applications. These applications are cloud provisioned and are serverless, and hence no need for additional hardware and software. And as you know, since these applications are developed on cloud, it completely works on subscription basis and also based on the entire billing mechanisms that the cloud providers sort of provide. Now, if you look at it, you have a lot of hyperscalers, whether the large hyperscalers that we all know, it could be AWS, it could be Google, or it could be Microsoft, Azure. These are the leading hyperscalers in the marketplace where really you can really pivot these applications onto the cloud native platform. Now, why cloud native and the outcomes? Now, if you look at from the business transformation, if the clients are really looking for faster turnaround times, B2B, B2C, you need a rapid digital transformation to happen. Gone are those days where you could really would have taken time for building these applications, which should have followed the SDLC methodology, where you could have taken a lot of time, 6 to 9 months, depending on the complexity, but those days have gone. This is all going to be completely on Agile DevOps, bringing in containerization, and also bringing in Kubernetes architecture, and you build these applications on the fly so that the customers can really adopt this at a very faster pace. Monolithic applications will take time to build, and that's the reason where it is going to be very expensive to maintain. So with this, cloud native has really been the center of the entire strategy with the client, and there is no other way but to move these applications onto the cloud. So this is, as we move further into the panel discussion, there will be a lot of conversation thread on this, but at a high level, this is what the clients are pivoting towards. This is what the partners, and this is what the leading system integrators are really driving this in the marketplace. So over to you, Jay.
Great. Sreenath, I really loved what you said there, right, about faster turnaround time. So today, with cloud native architecture, you can just spin up a minimal viable product in days, not as opposed to in months, right? So the innovation becomes really, really very key here, and how faster and how the agile approach that you take. So thanks for touching some of the points. And also you touched about the pillars, right, of cloud native infrastructure, the microservices, containers. So we'll discuss more as we move forward. So thanks for that summary about cloud native, right? So moving on, just to build upon our conversation. So I would like to bring in Ashish here, right? Ashish, the question that comes to mind is, what approach organizations are taking today on their journey towards modernization?
Sure, thanks, Ed. So modernization exercises are driven by business needs and business benefits. They don't kick off without that. Modernization can range from simple enhancement of deployment processes, which are simpler, to refactoring or re-architecting entire applications. Let me take an example. One of the top 5 hotel chains in the world has over 2,500 properties. Each property runs a property management system. The system where you check in, at the desk, they enter your information, and then you do a final checkout and you pay your bills. Now, these systems are running on servers which are more than a decade old, and they're just running fine. The question that the hotel chain is asking is, why should I modernize? Why should I move to cloud? It's going to be costing me, right? It's all running fine there. So while simple rehosting applications onto cloud, what they call as simple lift and shift, it can save some costs and solve some technical debt problems as well. The real business value is always questioned with that approach. Hence, a lot of organizations jump into the bandwagon of doing a quick lift and shift, but then they soon face problems of cost pressures coming in. So to truly maximize the value of cloud, enterprises must modernize their applications and adopt cloud native features in the long run. Let's come back to our hotel chain example. Their priorities changed with the COVID-19 pandemic. They now want to create a unique experience for their customers on the fly, because the problem is footfall itself is reduced drastically. And they are looking at newer ways to provide customers good experiences when they are in their property. And this is possible only when all the customer touch points which are there in the property, like the check-in desk, the travel desk, the restaurant, or the spa, and so on, they're all integrated. And real-time offers for a customer can be rolled out there. This can be achieved with modernizing their individual siloed applications that run in individual properties to share data in real time, and also use the power of cloud for faster integration and offer rollouts. So now you see they have a good business case to move forward. Some of the common challenges faced by organizations on the cloud journey are as follows. First and foremost is people and process changes. Having large IT teams or long-term outsourced contracts are a hindrance there, right? Workforce, people with the right technology skills. Cloud needs, or modernized technologies need always, different skills. And processes to adopt agile, processes to adopt, Deathstepops practices is a challenge. Second challenge is the characteristic of an application, which plays a very important role. There are applications that could be COTS-based, bespoke or custom developed, applications that could be adopting open source, applications that are using third-party proprietary packages and frameworks, and so on. Modernization cannot be templatized. The process for modernization can be templatized, but not the actual work. It all depends on individual applications. What are the characteristics of the application? The third challenge is the type of cloud adoption. We all know the fiasco with Azure that happened last year, right? AD was down, a lot of customers, most of them were on Azure cloud, could not log in, right? And things started failing. A lot of customers post that started coming and asking us, hey, we don't want to just depend on one cloud. We want to have multiple cloud. Instead of having one cloud multi-region, let's have a DR with beyond the cloud service provider that we're using. Also, business critical applications are even today running primarily in the data centers. There are hardly any customers that are 100% on cloud, except for the new age fintechs and so on. So hybrid cloud becomes also very important beyond multi-cloud. So that's a challenge again for DR, BCP, management, and so on. And finally, the changes to the operating model or the support structure that is there in place. Legacy application versus modernized application. Both coexist, and the support needs would be different for each one of them. Here is another example. One of our largest consumer tech company had their all internal business critical applications running in their data centers or private cloud for a very long time. Now, like any other consumer tech companies, their technology stack kept upgrading every 3 to 4 years. So they always had so-called latest and greatest on technology. So they decided, hey, let's move one of our most critical application, do a lift and shift, a simple rehost, and move it to cloud. They did that. And then they started suddenly seeing issues with performance, issues with costs, rocketing upwards. Then they changed the strategy. And they realized that it's just not having modern applications or modernized applications would solve all the problems when they move to cloud. They set up a governance and an evaluation mechanism or a gating criteria before any application could move to cloud. The criteria was what cloud native features are you going to use? What is the business benefit that you're going to get? And what impact of migration is going to cause on other integrated ecosystem of the applications that exists. With that, they're going in the right direction. So if the strategies is not right, problems can crop up even with modernized ecosystems and just not about legacy apps. So what are the key considerations towards modernization? First of all is identifying the right disposition. Want to do a simple rehost and replatform? At some times, if there is a need, a business need, for example, I want to get off my data center, so let me just move my application, just rehost them on cloud immediately, and then I'll try to modernize. Happens, a lot of customers do that. So that could be one of the disposition, rehost and replatform. The other dispositions could be re-architecture, embracing microservices-based architecture to a legacy environment and so on. Another disposition could be rewrite, which is moving legacy technology to more modern DevOps and other development practices. And replace could be another disposition, whereby I could get rid of one of my applications and use a SaaS-based solution which offers me whatever I want to, right? And these dispositions are also called as 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, and 7 hours. Different companies use different terminologies, but these are the key dispositions that exist. Second consideration is using third-party tools for effectively doing modernization at a lower cost. Tools that can help identify what is my application's readiness for cloud migration. What is my application's readiness to adopt microservices? What is the current technology debt in my application that I need to get rid before I move to cloud? What are the open source software that I'm using, and are there any vulnerabilities? Are there any IP risks that I'm using it? Usually this has been overlooked, and this has caused a lot of heartburn for many companies. Private data detection is another aspect that needs to be looked into. Am I being compliant to GDPR or PII by moving to cloud? Software health or resiliency and agility of the existing application also is something to be considered. Compliance and security policies is also an important aspect to be defined so that to safeguard the application and data that's hosted on cloud. Another consideration is Deathstepops. This is a topic always often misconstrued. With modernization comes in complication of deployments and management of application components. So with public cloud, the complexity increases exponentially. This is a huge change management that organizations needs to adapt to, and the entire existing IT specialist team need to either upgrade themselves or need to be replaced to embrace DevSecOps practices. Another consideration is using PaaS services. This is one of the key things for cloud native. So while considering application modernization, there are benefits one can take from what the cloud platform providers offer as PaaS services. PaaS services help reduce burden of, say, provisioning, auto-scaling, monitoring, and upgrades of the underlying infrastructure as well as the platform. This ensures that you always get the latest and the greatest without having to worry of things like end of life or license management and so on. Just use and pay as you go. A common example that a lot of our customers use is to move their database towards PaaS offerings. And almost every cloud provider there provides PaaS services on databases. Another important consideration is containerization. Instead of using virtual machines, which are heavyweight, they have applications, they have all the components of applications, they have operating system, everything bundled in together. You can now place components of an application in a container. So all the components of an application like frameworks, runtime, supporting applications, everything can be bundled together in a container as a self-sufficient environment. Containers are more suitable when you want to have a control on what version of the software that you want to run on, so that you can know what programming language or the runtime version that you want to use within your container. This allows application to be moved quickly between the host servers. And containers are preferred when you don't want to rewrite your application to a cloud native way. You want to still have it cloud agnostic. And they're used to pull apart monolith application into smaller pieces that can run independently and then merge together to form the solution. Cloud platform providers or hyperscalers give native support to container orchestration, like GKE in Google Cloud or AKS in Azure or EKS in AWS. And they provide benefits of containers, yet remove some of the management tasks away. Last but not the least is serverless. Azure Functions, AWS Lambda are some of the examples. Serverless architecture can perform automatic scale up and scale down, dictated by current workloads and demand. And you just need to pay when the resources are used. So during off-peak hours, if you do not want to run your code, you don't pay for it. It just runs. And there are cloud platform providers which charge you per second or even per millisecond for certain services. So while containers and virtual machines, you always pay for the hardware and the infrastructure, even if you're not using them. With serverless, you pay only when you use them. So this can arguably be the highest point of cloud nativity, right? And can be the most potential cost reduction. However, there are downsides with serverless as well, right? So serverless means you need to write code, which is written specifically for a cloud provider. Also, if your process is running heavily, running all the time, then serverless might not be an ideal case. Here's another example. An insurance giant was running IBM Integration Bus, IIB, as a middleware, integrating over 550 odd applications that they had. As part of the modernization journey, they're now replacing the entire IIB, which is a very expensive hardware plus software that they're running today, into serverless code. This helps them reduce a large licensing as well as infra costs. So as organizations are gaining maturity, they start with cloud-first approach, which is all about when they want to build a new application, they first think about cloud and they see around what I can build around cloud. And with cloud first, the adoption of cloud native just increases big time. So how are organizations across industries approaching modernization? If you look into the manufacturing world, manufacturing has two kinds of applications, corporate applications or B2B applications, and the applications which are core to their process of manufacturing, which runs in their factories. And what happens is in manufacturing, a lot of organizations move their corporate applications onto the cloud easily. But when it comes to the core manufacturing applications, they are deployed on-prem. Even with edge computing and other IoT-based solutions that are there around, modernization of core manufacturing systems is still having a very slow adoption rate because they're highly business critical and they need to run at all times. If you look at the CPG and retail industry, real-time data sync and analytics is very important for optimal supply chain for them. And customers in these industries are constantly investing in modernizing their data analytics and supply chain platforms. If you look at banking, it's evolving. This industry is evolving big time. While there are concerns around data privacy or security, country-specific regulations and compliances, data sovereignty, multiple channels of end consumers wanting to use the banking services and so on, and traditional bank always saying that there has to be a balance between technology solution and also they want to maintain the human touch. However, new age banks and fintechs are providing next generation experiences without human touch. And these are well accepted by the younger generation across different continents. So limitations like legacy mainframe or core banking are driving adoption of microservices, API, and serverless architecture in the banking industry. Concepts like open banking, open API are helping traditional banks modernize their ecosystem and adopt new channels of banking. So I spoke about the organization perspective towards adoption of cloud native and modernization and the industry's perspective as well. But how about cloud platform providers or hyperscalers? What is their view? What are they doing? Cloud platform providers are expanding their services at a very, very rapid pace. On technology, they now provide tools and services for discovery, assessment, modernization, and refactoring. How do they do this? They're either picking up small and niche companies or they're building it on their own. They're also building services to solve industry-specific problems, and they're partnering with SI partners like us to do the same. So if you look into AWS, they're doing mainframe modernization. They're building accelerators for refactoring and application. If you look at Azure, they're building solutions on sustainability, a better view on various aspects of sustainability. They're building solutions on agri-sector. If you look at Google Cloud, they're building solutions on retail. A lot of retail players had jumped on the bandwagon of cloud way back with AWS. And now for obvious reasons, they want to move away from AWS. A lot of them are moving towards Google Cloud, and Google is betting big on that. So to conclude, more and more organizations are realizing that the true power of cloud can be harnessed by embracing modernization and cloud native adoption. But this needs to be done in the right way and has to have a strategic move and not a tactical move. Over to you, Jay.
Great. Thank you, Ashish. That's a great insight. You started with the hotel chain example, and I'm going to steal that analogy. And also, touched upon property management system and, scale in and scale out. That was really awesome. Really touched upon application migration to cloud with respect to rehosting, lift and shift, replatforming, refactorization, re-architecture. You also touched upon, identifying the right dispositions, right? Cloud native strategy, using third-party tools for cost optimization. So one question, follow-up question to you, Ashish, is, what are the 3 key areas, right, for the enterprise CTOs that they should consider? Probably, you have in your summary, you have mentioned that, but just for the audience, would like to know what are the 3 important areas that enterprise CTOs should look at?
So first and foremost is trying to have identified what is the right business reason to move towards cloud, right? Without a true business reason, there is no value in just moving to cloud. And we have seen this as I quoted the example of customers, not only in the legacy world, but even in the modernized world, not getting benefits by just moving to cloud for the sake of moving to cloud, right? The second and foremost is what is the impact of this for their organization? CTOs needs to look at change management, which is the biggest impact that they will have with respect to technology, with respect to processes, with respect to tools. How are their people going to embrace this change? That's the most important, because that is the second part that they fail. And third thing is trying to figure out, not just use tools to trying to figure out, okay, this is you can run tools to do a discovery and assessment, which can tell, hey, this is where the application stands, go and do it. But then trying to figure out what is the relationship between applications, what are the dependencies between applications, and what is the actual roadmap? What should I move when? That is the most challenging question that everybody has it. It's not about, okay, I need to move. Great, I have proven that, yes, I need to move, but what to move when, in what order should I move, right? And that is the third most important aspect they need to look at before they can go and start on the journey towards modernization and adopting cloud.
Great. Those are some great suggestions, right? And Ashish, you did talk about some really fantastic examples, right? I just wanted to add, there are some companies who have implemented cloud native techniques. And Sreenath talked about speed, agility, and scalability, right? So if you look at Netflix, they have around 600 plus services in production. They deploy 100 times per day. It could not be possible other than, if you don't have cloud native infrastructure, right? Uber, for example, 1,000 plus services in production. They deploy several thousand times each week. So these are some of the biggest and greatest examples that we have who are using cloud native. So great. So moving on, just building on the same topic, right? Would like to carry forward this discussion. And Sreenath, over to you. Would you like to tell us more about the future of SaaS platform and how organizations are pivoting to analytics and apps?
Yeah. So thanks, Dave, once again, and thanks, Ashish, for the wonderful sort of a complete on the strategy on cloud native. You articulated it extremely well. So I will not repeat all the things that which you have already touched upon, but specific to SaaS. SaaS in the last more than a decade or so, if you see, there has been a significant adoption of SaaS platforms in large enterprises. And there are very strong born in the cloud solutions which are available today, right? If you look at, for example, the entire human capital management solution, including the finance, you have seen Workday. Their entire solution works on the cloud. Or if you look at Salesforce.com, their entire CRM, the Salesforce, completely, these are the solutions which completely the entire CRM solutions run on the cloud. Or if you look at SAP has completely migrated towards, or their entire strategy is to move to the SAP S/4HANA, which is on the cloud. Or if you look at Oracle has completely come up with, they moved into the cloud strategy almost 7-8 years back or beyond that, where you have got the entire ERP platforms, the Oracle ERP cloud, the HCM cloud, the finance cloud, and the OTM, the supply chain, the entire solutions, the whatever you run for an enterprise for the business is on cloud. So significant adoption of SaaS platforms on the cloud is what we are seeing today in the marketplace, completely on cloud native. They run on huge hyperscaler platforms. They've all moved. You could have a hybrid cloud strategy. You could have a completely public cloud strategy, or you can still run a private cloud depending on the workloads. So if you look at how the companies are gravitating or pivoting towards this, there are, so while Ashish touched upon cloud first, we sort of call it as cloud right. We call it as cloud right as a strategy. And it is important when you move this entire SaaS applications or the ERP applications onto the cloud or the SaaS platforms, the process and technology standardization strategy is going to be very, very important, because these platforms come with the standard features and functionalities. The entire business processes, whether it is the supply chain process or the manufacturing process or the human capital management or the CRM process, all are captured. The process standardization and technology transformation is going to be the key focus for every client. The second one is the workloads. What is the complexity of workloads that you would like to move? Whether you could have a complete, as I mentioned, you could have the entire workload movement done onto the cloud, or you can run some large applications which I touched upon, like the other core industries, where you run that on the hybrid cloud architecture, so that you address the entire workloads, so that the applications don't break and meet the end-to-end business process. The third one is when you are really looking at the SaaS adoption onto the cloud, do a complete financial analysis. It's absolutely important that you have the financial modeling and how it is going to be based on the number of users, or based on the functionalities, or based on whatever are the criteria that the business is going to run. That's the third one. And the fourth one, that what we have seen with respect to the entire SaaS adoption onto the cloud is basically when you look at, if you are running large enterprises, you can, once you pivot the applications onto the cloud, it's important you have all these applications running. Then you need to draw it, and that's where the analytics will play a big role. Pulling the data from these sources and getting the data and driving it into insights. And again, data and insights, basically moving the data and getting the predictive modeling or advanced analytics. Or if you are working for a marketing organization, doing market segmentation analysis, pulling the data, based on the data and the decision making that you can do. So this is where once you move the applications or the SaaS applications onto the cloud, then having an analytics on top of it, pulling the data from multiple source systems and driving insights. And again, there are several platforms. Again, you could use your standard platforms which are available, but again, the hyperscalers give a very good platform. For example, Google has a fantastic platform with respect to Google, right from data ingestion to sort of arriving at the final insights. So if you look at, there are 6 pillar strategy, so you can really put that in place. Similarly, AWS, similarly, it could be some other platform. So this is where using cloud native as a sort of an infrastructure service and platform as a service, which Ashish touched upon, SaaS being on top of it, and then the analytics, the data insights, so that the customer, the client, or the CTOs or the client organization will have an end-to-end full stack. We call it as full stack, where you have the entire solutions being built, and then you are able to drive data and insights. There are very good platforms with Azure Synapse, Databricks. There's so many platforms that you can use to really drive this, pulling the data and also ensuring that you have data insights. The last one that I can really touch upon when you move on to the cloud platform is basically, as I touched upon, is the security. Security is something that we need to really look into. While we can really get enamored when you are really moving these applications onto the cloud, having robust security, and especially the cyber security, the compliance standards. If you look at SAP as an example, they have a GRC model, governance, risk and compliance model. So similarly, there are other platforms where you have to really look at the overall security, right from infrastructure platform and from the SaaS platform, so that you are able to bring in the security considerations, considering the industries that you are working on, so that there is data privacy, and also ensuring SOX compliance and other regulatory standards. Because when you do multi-deployments across the globe, multi-region rollouts which will happen, it's important that you look into the local regulatory conditions when you do the SaaS applications onto the deployments onto the cloud. So overall, the experience has been quite terrific across the industries and across the geographies and the regions. Good experience in consumer and retail, or it could be in transportation, or it could be in banking and insurance. So where we have seen a good amount of adoption. For the sake of confidentiality, I can't name, but we have seen this as an emerging trend, and cloud native is the way to go, bringing in all this agile, DevOps, Deathstepops, containerization, Kubernetes, whatever we touched upon. So that is being part of this journey. Over to you, Jay.
Yeah, great insights, Sreenath. And you really touched upon some of the use cases, which is eye-opening. And what caught my attention was cloud right? So cloud first, cloud right, and cloud native, right? Can you draw some parallels between what exactly is that, or is there a difference when we say?
Yeah, so the way we look at cloud right, you're able to hear? Yeah. So if you look at cloud right is sort of a strategy that we have put up with, which we have put up in DXC. That's the entire strategy that which we have put in, because cloud first or cloud native, whatever we have called out, ensuring that the applications are sort of moved into the cloud, the transformation journey, whether it is migration, modernization, deployments. If you don't do it the right way, it is absolutely going to be a catastrophe for the clients, for the business. And we have sort of called it as moving the entire solutions or the ERP or the applications mainframe modernization, any of these applications, we do it the right way. And that we have branded as cloud right, basically following the 7 or 8 tenets, which I touched upon, which at a very high level, which is the view that I give. And that's the entire methodology and the processes that which we have put in place. So that, and working with the hyperscalers, and as a system integrator, we want to bring in that experience, Jay. Yeah.
Okay. So those were some great insights for our audience. Thank you, Sreenath, for keeping the audience in mind. Moving on moving on, right? So let's move into some more deep dive on SaaS platform, right? The different flavors and the evolution of platform and product companies. So Srikanth, why don't you go for it?
Thanks, Jay. So both Ashish and Sreenath, covered the enterprise modernization strategy quite very well and in depth, right? I would probably look at throwing light more on the product or the ISV companies who are actually enabling these enterprises to be more nimbler and adopt these cloud native technologies, as well as kind of, what are some of the imperatives of why they are going down this path. Now, in the recent past, because of this COVID pandemic, one of the positive side effects of this pandemic was the burgeoning need for SaaS services, including in areas where traditionally tech was not very prevalent, right? So, for example, take the example of churches. Now, in the pandemic, where they used to conduct these virtual prayer sessions, they needed a just software which could also enable them to get donations from the people, right? Now, similarly in salons, they needed appointment booking, they needed to be able to serve at-home requests, different kind of flavors. And this is where what we saw was a lot of the SaaS product companies trying to come up with new services which will enable the implementation of these kind of demand from the sectors which traditionally were not tech savvy, right? This also put pressure on the ISVs to innovate much faster so that they can serve this demand for their end customer. And because cloud native used to provide the ability to innovate faster as well as create quick MVPs, this became the preferred choice for a lot of these product companies, right? Again, going back to, say, Sreenath touched upon some of the very large, ISV companies like SAP, Oracle, who are all been doing cloud native services for years together, right? Now, evolving on these cloud native services, these companies are today actually creating platforms which are very specifically serving your industry. So, for example, say take Salesforce. Salesforce today is not just a CRM solution, right? Underlying, yes, it is a CRM solution, but it can help you do e-commerce, it can do healthcare practice management, it can help you with analytics. So it has basically evolved its platform beyond CRM by leveraging the core CRM services and adopting an industry specific flavor so that more and more people can actually leverage these services in an effective manner. Similarly, take the example of, say, Azure, Microsoft, the way Microsoft is innovating, right? Now, Azure started off as a horizontal platform, then kind of, Microsoft rapidly started building additional services like IoT services, analytics services, etc. on top of it. And today they have also started giving industry specific flavors like Microsoft Healthcare platform, right? So everybody is kind of in the technology world is innovating towards being more agile and helping the enterprises easily leverage these cloud native services so that the cost of going cloud native comes down for the enterprises. And lastly, we do hear a lot about this particular, right? There are a lot of security concerns raised when we talk about cloud. But actually speaking, today, all the platform companies have built in such robust security and compliances into their platform itself. It is actually easier to build on top of these cloud platforms like AWS or Azure and build greater security rather than doing that from scratch. So that's it, Jay, over to you.
Nice, great. So just a follow-up question on that, right, Srikanth? So what goals are you trying to achieve from being cloud native, or what goals the organization are trying to achieve?
Sure. So, Jay, I think Ashish did touch upon it in terms of, how enterprises are and platform companies are looking at increasing their cloud native footprint, right? So the biggest reason for adoption of cloud native is actually the ability to do things faster, right? Now, if earlier, for example, so let's stay with, say, e-commerce. Now, earlier, when you had, say, this Magento, to do a platform using even a Magento PaaS system, it used to take you 6 months to 1 year. Today, for example, if I go ahead and use a cloud native services provided by Shopify, I can go live within 15 to 20 days. Now, that's the kind of speed which we are talking about. So definitely the primary imperative for going cloud native is the speed and scale at which you can innovate. And the second thing is it also ultimately, based on the architecting style that you adopt, it can help you bring down your cost of operations as well. So those are the two primary reasons that the enterprises are looking at cloud native.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Srikanth. So while we were discussing, there was a question posted by Ashok, and Ashish, Ashok really loved your insights, and he would want to understand the fine line of difference between digital transformation and modernization in terms of cloud migration.
Okay, all right. So yeah, sure. Thanks for asking the question. So digital transformation, you have to look at it more from a business benefit way. A company or an organization would go towards digital transformation if they see that the way they're doing business today is not good enough to take them to the next level, right? Citing a good example is one of an insurance giant recently. They want to undergo a digital transformation journey because their current systems, they have IT systems today. Yes, they do have, but the time it takes to onboard a new customer, right? Few hours. The time it takes to process a claim, few days. So can they reduce that? Can they have customers being able to get a lot of products online within a few minutes? Can claims be processed faster and so on? And for that, what has to change is the underlying process is followed by the insurance giant, right? The process is the way things are processed. And also wherever there is something manually done, trying to bring in digitization. So that's digital transformation, right? They want to go through the entire journey to reinvent themselves, if I may, in the way they do things, so that they can provide better customer experience. So that is about digital transformation. When you look at modernization comes a theme within digital transformation, right? So digital transformation will drive modernization. So when you're doing that, when you're embarking on a journey of digital transformation, you need to look at what are your applications and what you need to do with them. Do you need to modernize them? Do you need to adopt cloud? Do you need to bring in new ways of engaging with customers and so on? So that is how the fine line of difference between digital transformation and modernization will be.
Great. Thank you, Ashish. So we have got another question here from Pawan. Pawan says that he really liked the insights that were shared. So thank you, Sreenath, Srikanth, and Ashish. He got a question on how do you look at low code and no code cloud native platforms and transformation journey? I think what he tries to mean is, maybe when you talk about lift and shift, right? There is no architectural change or no code changes are required, right? And we have different levels of application migrations to cloud, from rehosting or a lift and shift to a replatforming to re-architecture. So what I inferred from the question is, what's the difference between lift and shift or to a re-architecturing or refactoring?
Okay, I can take a dig at that. So low-code, no-code platforms, according to me, a lot of low-code, no-code platforms are business process driven. They try to simplify a business process or a workflow and so on. And different platforms have different, they cater to different kind of business needs and trying to solve a particular problem. So there's no one size fits all things, right? And that's why the adoption there goes different. Now, what I understand here, when Pawan is talking about low-code, no-code, and cloud native platforms, I believe it is about cloud native, solutions that are there, which will provide low code, no code features as well, right? It could be something like ServiceNow. They do have low code, no code features as well, providing while trying to solve a business problem, right? I say it is still evolving, right? They're still not there, but yes, that is a space to watch for. But then a lot of SI players, if you get into the SI players, while they embrace low code, no code platforms, with open arms, but if you go to the architect community, they say, what is in it for me when I have to use a low code, no code platform? So there's always that argument as well. But then yes, since low code, no code platforms are there today trying to address a problem, a business problem, they're not still reached to a state where I see a large scale adoption. But yes, that's a space to watch for as they mature more and more. Maybe they could become a mainstream today. This whole concept was there long time back as well as case tools. It did not really kick off. It has now come up in a new avatar called low code, no code, and it may still be there. But yeah, it's a space to watch out for.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashish, for elaborating on that. We have another question from Imtiaz. Is it right to say digital transformation is to improve bottom line and modernization is to improve top line?
I would say digital transformation is to improve both top line and bottom line. Digital transformation is to get more and more top line, so increase top line, and also that's the key thing, right? How do you improve your bottom line is where you do the modernization. So I would say it's the other way around. Digital transformation is getting new avenues of business, and modernization is how to reduce the cost there so that your bottom line increases.
Yeah, so if I can just add to what Ashish mentioned, I think he sort of summed it very well. But just adding a couple of my 2 cents on that is, the whole digital transformation is basically how are you ensuring that your business stakeholders are able to really use this entire transformation, whatever has been done, that they are able to drive new business models, new B2B models, new faster time to market, end user experience, total experience. So those are some of the things that the digital transformation will bring in. But having said that, if you want to really do the modernization, which happens at the either bringing in the infrastructure or IaaS or platform as a service or software as a service, the entire transformation that you do and the modernization that you do is what will really help from the financial technology or transformation, and also from the financial scalings, which is what I just mentioned. So the top line and bottom line, as like Ashish told, it's a culmination of both. So digital transformation will drive more business outcomes, so more business top line. And then when you really look at your entire spending, which will happen when you move into the cloud architecture, maybe you can really leverage the financial models which are available with the hyperscalers, so that you can really improve your bottom line, pay as you go, right, and all that stuff. It's an OPEX model, it's not a CAPEX model, so it will improve your bottom line. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question from Ajit. What are the top 3 pitfalls in digital transformation that companies should avoid?
Sorry?
I think any one of our panelists can take it.
Yeah. So it's about top 3 pitfalls in digital transformation that companies should avoid. Yeah, I'll take a quick stab at that, and then others can chime in as well. When you're doing a digital transformation, first and foremost is clearly articulating what is the business relevance with this digital transformation that you're starting with. It all starts in the right way, right? I want to embrace newer channels of customer engagement. Let's assume, right? A bank says, okay, I want to embrace newer channels. Let me get onto mobile phones. Let me provide them chatbots and so on. So fair enough, you start with that. But then when you get into the engineering solution of implementing it, the problems that come out is, what is the ROI? Are you doing that by too much of over engineering, or are you doing it just to be one of what others are doing, but there's no real ROI? Or what is really going to happen to your business when you implement the change? That's the first and foremost. What is the business relevance? Second is what's going to be the ROI, and third one, which a lot of organizations tend towards, is over engineering the solutions, right? When they try to do so I know okay, here is an example of a bank that wanted to, embrace new channels of customer engagement. So they started off connecting with their, they had all mainframe ecosystem, and they wanted to, say, embrace mobile platform for the customers. Then after that, they figure out, okay, you know what? A lot of my offers from the banks are being published by third-party providers. So now I need to open a channel from a mainframe to third-party providers, and so on. So the number of channels went on increasing, and they just went on the way to modernize and start enabling each and every channel. After some point, they started figuring out, okay, certain channels are there for the sake of being there, but they do not generate much business. So should we do further modernization? Do we still do further transformation, or do we stop there and say, okay, this is what is enough, let us relook into our strategy? And that's the cycle they went through, and they stopped after a certain point.
Great. Thank you, Ashish. I think we have time for one more question here. And yeah. So what data management capabilities do you need for successful advanced analytics? So Sreenath, maybe probably you can take this.
Yeah. So thanks, Jake. So data management is going to be the core of this entire data to insights, which I touched upon. So there are a lot of techniques today, the processes, the tools, methodologies that has been put in place with respect to data management. In fact, there are a lot of experiences setting up of data factory, where you'll really look at the entire data management, right from data cleansing to data ingestion, data cleansing, and ensuring that you sort of come up with the right data that you can derive insights. And there are tools where you have got MDM tools, where you can do master data management strategies that can be put in place. So it is absolutely critical. While we talked upon cloud native for the last 57 minutes or so, it's absolutely critical that, especially when you are really doing large scale transformation programs and where data is going to be the core, it's important that you have the right data strategy. If you don't have the right data strategy, especially on the SaaS when you are doing large ERP deployments, if you don't, because the master data which comes out, if you don't have the right data strategy for that and using the right adoption technologies, in fact, there are companies who just run data management. I know several companies who only specialize on data management, data processes, data tools, so that you can derive insights. It is very core for driving analytics, and this is going to be the heart for ensuring that you get the right insights for the entire enterprise and the corporates, so that they are able to take the right decisions. So with that, over back to you, Jay.
Yeah, great. We have 2 more minutes left, and couple of questions just came in, and I'm just going to consolidate it because it is towards microservices, right? And Chetan and Pradeep almost have the same question in terms of, as we know, cloud native uses microservices, which can provide agility. So he wants to know, microservices is harder to maintain, then why should we use this, and what are the challenges? And Pradeep wanted to know a little bit more on microservices in the context of digital transformation. Probably we can consolidate these 2 questions in one.
I can explain this with an example. One of the large banks in the Nordics, they also apparently running their core banking system on mainframe, similar to the other example that I mentioned in the other question. So, but this bank, the bank here is different. So when they wanted to, expose their mainframe services outside to the partners, there is a new standard that has come up in the European region called open banking. So they need to comply to the standards, which means they need to open their services out from their core banking to, to the outside world. And that's a need from the government institutions out there. So when they had to do that, they took an approach to say, okay, let us build microservices which will expose this, APIs based by APIs, expose my mainframe services out to the outside world. They had about 300 different touch points, Now, of course, you can build 300 microservices, but that's not the approach to go, right? So what we ended up bringing is we figured out to have a domain-driven or a business-driven API approach, which means that you don't need to expose all 300. What really makes sense to the bank, and then merge certain services together to form one service. And then we identified about 30 or microservices that should be exposed and not more than that, right? So designing it, and that's a discussion that happens more with the business. I mean, the technology guy can go and implement 300 or 50 or 30, doesn't really matter, right? It's a business that you need to discuss with. You need to understand what really makes sense and have that approach to identify the right set of microservices and then design your server and then start designing them. So what is important is identifying what is relevant, what is needed, and then designing that and do only what is minimal and then exposing them off, rather than saying, okay, yes, it is difficult. There is no doubt on that. But if you do the right design, if you do what is really needed, then you can get it right. And not always is microservices going to work out. In the hotel example that I mentioned, there's no need of microservices. There's no need, right? One of our airline customers, they have certain services running out there. They don't need microservices at all. They're having SaaS-based platforms, and the SaaS may be exposing microservices, but the internal systems just connect simple APIs. They don't need of microservices at all needed in their architectures. So you have to identify where is relevant and what is relevant, and then design accordingly. That should be the approach.
Okay, great. I think we are at the top of the hour, and we had few more questions. Really sorry, would not be able to take further questions. We can definitely answer offline. So some exciting job to be in exciting times, isn't it, guys? So thank you so much for coming here, Ashish, Srikanth, and Sreenath. And thank you so much for our audience. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you found some moments that made you think or taught you something, or even spark a conversation within your company. So follow us on all future episodes. You can now watch our webinar on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we would love to hear your thoughts and your point of views on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.